Little Caesars changed the game, bro.
They did.
Little Caesars changed. That's the most shot of shit I've ever seen.
Hey, Chewy, blood. They want you on the podcast, bro. Look, he Mexican, bro. You gotta put him on.
Am I interrupting your depression? I'm sorry.
This week's episode of The Voice Party is brought to you by Big Boy Raps. Get your car wrapped by some of the most experienced and skilled in the Bay. Big Boy Raps, where the big boys play.
All right.
JD's totally not invested.
Yeah, dude.
I'm listening.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Voice Party. Today, the episode is sponsored by Big Boy Raps. As always, Big Boy Raps with Big Boys Play. We are doing one last episode today, and the reason I wanted to do this was because I have some questions that I think our guest today, we're putting in the hot seat, Joaquin Xavier, would very much like. But since it's a new episode, we're going to introduce everybody. We got JD next to me. What's going on?
Just living the dream, baby.
We got Joaquin Xavier.
Hey.
Don't worry, you can reach the mic. Right? Yeah, I'll pick you up. My name is Marcos, and we got Phil behind the board. What's going on, Phil?
Just making podcasts great again.
I should not have asked you. Fucking regret that already. All right. So, what I got is yay or nay.
Yay.
Or best of. What do you want to do?
Best of.
Best of. I'm glad you picked that. All right. First topic. Let's do something easy at first.
Sure.
Best of when you were growing up, your favorite cereals.
Okay. Frosted Flakes.
Fruity Pebbles.
Fruity Pebbles.
That's the best cereal. I'm gonna respectfully disagree, and I'm gonna say Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries.
Okay,
that's actually pretty good.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with all of you guys and say Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the best cereal of all time. Do you guys not think so?
No, that's for children. Let's be honest.
All of these cereals that you have named are for children.
I thought the point was growing up.
Yeah.
So here's my JD. Here's my problem with the Pebbles.
Okay.
They get soggy really quick.
That's the best part about it. That's the best part about Fruity Pebbles. They get soggy.
That's gross. That's like
it gets soggy and it's still good. No, name me one other cereal that's good after you get it soggy. Frosted fruit.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Great.
It doesn't.
It's so good when it's hard, and it's so good when it's soft.
I bet it is, Marco.
As soon as I said that, I was like, "You got to just finish that."
It's hard.
I had to just finish that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just okay, that's one criteria. Also, the milk tastes good with Fruity Pebbles afterwards. Frosted Flakes,
Cocoa Pebbles. Are you sure you're talking about Cocoa Pebbles?
No, motherfucker, Fruity Pebbles.
I'll be honest with you. As a child, I was denied most sugary cereals.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Like the only times that I had like sugary, like aside that Frosted Flakes is the only exception.
Okay.
You know, like next to that, it was like Honey Nut Cheerios, but that doesn't really count, right? And one time I managed to convince my grandmother to get me a box of like honeycomb. And for like that whole week or two, she was just like, I hope you enjoy your sugary air puffs. It's all filled with his air. But whenever I would spend the night at a friend's house or a cousin's house, I had the rare treat of Fruit Loops or Tricks, which I enjoyed, but I didn't have enough time spent with either of those cereals to really make much of a judgment.
So you grew up with Honey Bunches of Oats and shit.
Yeah.
See, that's what I eat
now. Do you
now.
ever have Hard-O's? Like the
Hard-O's.
honey. I don't know. They were like Cheerios, but they were like shaped of hearts. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've seen them. I don't think I've ever had them though. I've seen them
you guys might not remember Honey Smacks.
Honey Smacks are one of my favorites.
The commercials for Honey Smacks. It was like the frog.
The frog.
Yeah.
I see those. I see Kicks.
Kicks. I remember.
I didn't like Kicks as much. I thought I was gonna like them, and then my mom finally bought me some, and I did not like them.
Yeah, they're not sweet, if I recall correctly.
No, they're bland.
Yeah.
They were just yellow.
Honey Bunches of Oats is what I eat now. That's like the only cereal. Have you guys heard of Magic Spoon?
Oh yeah, that's like the healthy.
It's like less sugar.
For less sugar.
Healthy.
Yeah, I saw somebody do a taste test on YouTube, and they said every flavor was terrible. But they sponsor Chris Jericho's podcast, and he loves them. So I don't know who to believe.
Well, it's less. It's less sugar.
I've never seen that.
It's less sugar, and
Never even
it's
heard of
kid cereal for adults who grew up with kid cereal, but it's less sugar. It's like made with like wheat, actual like not non-bleach wheat, like good, like the stuff like you know,
good stuff.
Yeah, but it's
that
healthy.
means.
But you know, a lot of people don't. But if you stop eating that shit, the old boxes, I heard it tastes delicious. So I don't know. That's okay. Going back to cereal. Trix is also another one of those that I grew up with.
Here's my thing with
Back when
Trix.
they were shapes.
I was just about to say that when I was a kid, they were actually like fruit shapes, and now they're balls. And I can't decide if Trix changed or if now that I'm an adult, I don't see the shapes anymore because Trix are for kids.
Oh,
that sounds like
holy shit! You just blew my fucking mind.
film right there.
Just blew my mind.
Wait, what?
I said I can't.
Oh my God.
I can't determine if the cereal itself has changed or if I've just grown up and can't see the shapes anymore because Trix are for kids.
It's kind of like, you know, that you've seen the movie Hook, right? Similar logic, right?
Right.
Why did I never think of that?
Oh my gosh.
That's been the voice party.
And that's been your bonus.
Go from there.
That's been your bonus.
Mind blowing.
You know what though?
Oh.
I used to go eat at
Magical.
Fila Burger Pizza. Fila Burger.
I just heard of that shit. That's in Richmond, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my God, this poor child.
I've never been. My friend Raymond loved it.
I used to go eat there all the time as a kid. Like, not all the time, but whenever the family, we would either go out to get tacos in Oakland at the taco spots that we knew that were fucking bomb, or we would go out to McDonald's, or on the good payday, we would go out to Fila Burger. And I would always order the mushroom cheesesteak. The big old, you know, and back as a child, I would eat like half of half and then eat the other half later. And then I just had a whole half for the next day, you know?
I heard you would hook people up, like if you came all the time.
Yeah. And then now as a fucking adult, it's crazy. I see like I've grown where like I eat the whole thing and I'm like, wow, that was
Did this get smaller?
that was a nice little snack.
There is a possibility chance though. Sorry, that the burgers did get smaller though as you got bigger.
That's
because
what it was.
a lot of
Inflation.
a lot of restaurants have been like cutting back on like what they used to be.
I think it all comes down to just me growing, bro.
That's also true.
My stomach's like 4 times the size I was. My stomach alone is 4 times the size I was at that age when I first started having them.
Gotcha.
You know,
Gotcha.
I remember the first time I got onion rings from Red Onion back in 2001, and the bag.
The very first time.
Huge. Very first time.
Red Onion?
Yep.
It's fucking still huge.
You know.
Still, yeah.
But I mean, the one down my street.
Oh,
right
yeah.
down on San Pablo.
yeah.
You know, right down from
Home Depot.
Right across from Home
yeah.
Depot. It was, oh man, it was big. And then the next time it was just a moderately sized bag, and I was like,
Well,
sometimes they be playing.
do you remember a super sized meal? You know, used to be like $8 at McDonald's.
Oh yeah,
and that's like big ass fries.
I don't think.
You don't remember?
I don't remember supersize. I saw the movie in high school, and all our
That's why they got rid of it. Like Wendy's had the biggie size, McDonald's had the super size, and then that movie came out and it was terrible PR. So
and then
they started adding salad.
Well, what they did is because as you can tell, I eat a lot of fast food. They dropped the branding, but they kept the sizes. So like super size became large, and large became medium, and medium became small.
Oh, is that what
so they kept the sizes and just renamed them all, but dropped the supersize branding.
Oh, so we have the supersize.
Yeah, it's the new large.
Got you. Okay. See, I don't remember ever seeing a supersize, but I mean,
Well,
I was
how old
pretty
are
young.
you?
27.
Oh, okay.
So I was alive when it was out. It just wasn't. I wasn't old enough to remember it.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't ordering McDonald's by myself at that time.
Yeah.
See, I'm so old. I remember yellow Wendy's, fun Taco Bell, and dollar menus.
Chihuahua.
I remember Chihuahua Taco Bell.
I also remember the play places.
play.
I think,
yeah.
man,
I used to play in those.
didn't all the fast food joints?
Not all.
No, not all.
have like a
No,
I don't think Burger King ever had one. McDonald's definitely did.
they had them everywhere.
McDonald's.
Burger King used to have like the little birthday crown.
Yeah,
You know,
they still do.
They still, yeah, they probably
Still have that?
They still have the crowns. I haven't seen a lot of the insides of these fast food places because it's all drive-through now. Like, you know, as an adult,
Yeah.
you know,
Or you're ordering it to
DoorDash.
like DoorDash or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, as an adult, there's no reason to eat it there. You either eat it in your car or you get it and go home.
no, you do, you do
I've always
because
liked tables.
Because if you're working on the go like I do, like sometimes in my old job, I would have to stop and eat there just because I didn't want to eat in my car. And
Yeah.
like, you're eating like a panda.
Yeah, no, 100%.
No,
it's
on your stomach.
sometimes the band would like be having like an hour drive or something
And you
from
wanna
a show, and we want to stop, and so we just park the van right in front of the restaurant, and we would just sit down and be able to relax.
That's fair enough. I give you that. I'll give you that.
But I mean, other than that, all right. This is kind of a
What's your next one? What's your
kind
next
of a,
one,
this is
Mark?
kind of a
Wait, what was this a fucking game?
yeah. I gave you like one topic that I knew you were going to go off on.
Right,
Okay.
and then we
Right. I have like three questions that I know is going to last forever.
All right, cool.
All right. This is just kind of a random one. But when did you guys realize the Target logo was a Target?
When I first learned English.
That's awesome because I was like 14.
Oh, no way. And also they used to have a dog. Remember the dog?
Yes, I remember the dog.
With the spot in his eye?
He just died. Like maybe 5 years ago or something.
Like
There was only one
There
dog.
was only one
I thought
dog?
They usually had more than one dog.
Jesus, that poor.
they only had. I think they
He was captive.
Well, you know, they use the same like 2 farms.
Yeah.
For all the like animals that do TV.
Yeah.
Like they raise.
way.
They raise all the animals.
Sure.
And they train them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
That's,
I mean, I'm sure there's like other specific ones, like the dog and cat one probably doesn't have lions and stuff, but maybe they do. I don't know. But yeah, it's like it's all within like a company. Okay, so my next topic or my next best are WWE wrestlers. Best wrestlers of your childhood. Best wrestlers of all time. Your favorites, even though they might not be the best.
Okay. All right.
And I want to argue this point. I've heard that the generation of like our parents growing up, right, was like the best because you had like Hulk Hogan in their prime, you had Jake the Snake, whatever, right? And then I've heard the argument that like around the Jeff Hardy, Edge, Christian, the Hardy Brothers in that era when TLCs came out, that was some of the prime because you've seen them doing crazy things, right? And now you see wrestling today, and it's not as crazy as it used to be.
Sure.
WWE speaking. I'm not talking about AEW. I don't really watch that, to be honest. But,
Okay.
All right, well, here's what I'll say.
And I know you two. Yeah, sorry.
Here's what I'll say. I was never a Hulkamaniac. Macho Madness was far better than Hulkamania.
I agree.
I was gonna say Macho Man Randy Savage way better than Hulk Hogan. So say Savage over Hogan. I would say of my childhood, Rock and Austin, because I grew up in the '90s with wrestling.
Who's better out of those two?
It's hard because I think Rock was the better talker, but I think Austin was the better overall performer.
Personality wise, I think Stone Cold was the better one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
he was more like he beat even though The Rock became like bigger than life at the time, it was like, if The Rock gets jumped by some villain, who's gonna come and save the day? Then like that's the hero.
yeah. So, well, here's what I would say. The hard part is they both were at the same time. Like if Rock came out 5 years later, they each would have easily been the best of their generation. But the fact that they both came out at the same time, that's where it's like, damn,
They were, in my eyes, they were kind of equal. Just because they were both
Great personalities.
great personalities, great characters.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were both good wrestlers, and they were similar. Yeah, I would say, and for their size too.
That's true.
Like they weren't like super high flyers like Jeff Hardy or like Christian or you know what I mean? Like
That's true.
Like you know what I mean? So like
It's also pretty doggone tall compared to a lot of high flyers.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like so they were both pretty big guys. I think.
In my opinion,
Like-
the best, all-time best, because he touched on a lot of these
Just had different-
generations.
I say you just kind of had different characters, but they kind of did the same thing.
Oh yeah.
They're very much that same kind of wrestler.
No, I mean like for my favorite, I would say he was the best because he was in the Hulkamania era. He dominated as Undertaker. That's like the best all time. I think that should be I think he is a top bet, like the best wrestler of all time because this dude wrestled in fucking, you know, the Hulk. He wrestled Hulk Hogan. He wrestled all those fucking guys. Got to wrestle what was that dude's name? Bret Hart in his prime. Got to wrestle the Stone Cold and the fucking Rock era in their prime. And then he just ended his career with some of these other guys in their prime and still dominated.
Well, what I would say what's most Corday's totally not here. Bam. What I would say is that's most impressive about Undertaker is somehow like he got better as he got older.
Yeah.
Because you look at like the last 10 years of his career when he was just wrestling once a year at WrestleMania and like the matches he had with like CM Punk and Triple H and Brock Lesnar, like, and Shawn Michaels. Those were like some of the best of his career. And those were like in his twilight years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Experience, right?
And oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
And that fucking character, like
The character's amazing.
shadows every other fucking character.
I think the Undertaker-Kane feud is probably one of the best feuds in wrestling.
Yeah.
Fucking Undertaker's long-lost brother and fucking set their house on fire and the parents were killed in the fire and his burned brother comes back for revenge.
So cheesy, but I love it.
And then they're gonna have a fucking Inferno match where whoever lights their opponent on fire wins.
Who said like who's in the office going, dude, let's set our employees on fire? And then the employees are like,
Vince is like, draw me money? Like, yes, the answer is yes. So, I mean, you know, to answer your question on my end, like, if I could cheat a little bit, because you said WWE specifically.
yes.
Since WWE owns all of WCW footage,
Yeah.
I'm gonna name some WCW wrestlers
And
'Cause that's
ECW,
what I
right?
grew up watching was WCW. Like I vaguely remember
When did they buy WCW and ECW?
they bought the libraries around like what 2000, right? 2001.
So what?
Okay.
What it was is.
Because I remember watching ECW, but that was a W.
So what happened was WWE bought WCW for $1 million, like 2 weeks before WrestleMania 17 in 2001.
Okay.
And then ECW, they didn't buy. ECW went bankrupt, and then WWE like bought the trademarks and assets out of bankruptcy court, so they could use the trademarks and pick up the tape library. But ECW had already gone bankrupt by the time WWE picked up their assets.
Yes.
So they bought.
Yeah.
They-
Although somebody pointed out that Vince McMahon paid more money for sex than he did for WCW because he paid $3.5 million in hush money to all the women he slept with. He paid $1 million for WCW.
That's a businessman right there. Pay more for pleasure than you do for business.
But basically, with that context thrown out, I would like to acknowledge that Macho Man, although Macho Man was better in the ring than Hulk Hogan counts as you mentioned having a wrestler that we love despite not being very good, and that Hogan is that guy for me.
Terrible wrestler.
Right? Terrible wrestler. But for me, the moment that cemented me is the Hulkamaniac. Wasn't the cartoon. I used to watch like reruns of the cartoon back in the day. I've seen him in the movies and stuff. But it was his NWO heel turn. Him being the third man has got to be one of the greatest moments in wrestling dramatic history. Just leg coming through and leg dropping who he needed to leg drop to hoist up the hands of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. But if we're talking
Game
about
changer.
if we're talking about greatest wrestler of all time,
Only line. Game
Like-
changer.
as far as like old school greatest of all time goes, Ric Flair.
I was actually going to ask you that. So I looked
Right.
it up on Google, right? And I asked the question, who was the greatest wrestler of the 80s? It says Ric Flair. What are your guys' opinions on that?
Okay, well, see,
And I know
If
that's
we're talking
subjective.
it is subjective. See, here's the thing. I didn't watch wrestling in like the 70s and the 80s during, Ric Flair's heyday. So when I was introduced to Ric Flair, he was the old, battered down, broken man, still trying to pick up women and swinging his dick around in front of flight attendants and shit. So I have a very different opinion of Ric Flair than other people. If you ask me who the best wrestler of all time is, I'm going to say Shawn Michaels. That's my go-to for best of all time is the Heartbreak Kid. He, especially what's amazing is he had those 2 runs. He had that run.
Game changer.
He had that run in like the 80s and 90s, and then he had the back injury, came back from the back injury, had a whole nother run, which was arguably even better because in his first run, he was on drugs and he was a prima donna and he was a backstage politician. And then when he was out with his back injury, he found Jesus, got saved, came back as a completely different person.
And he had to actually work to get in these matches with these guys who were game changers.
Now, if I were to,
No, I get it.
if I were to name an actual WWE wrestler that I actually think is like one of my personal favorites out of that company, and ignoring WCW, because I could go on further. I could name you Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio Jr., all those guys. But if I'm going to dial it back to WWE, the one wrestler that WWE had when I first tuned in, because the reason I started watching WWE is because I moved from down south where I had cable. I was living in Arkansas, and I moved up here, and the grandparents I was living with up here didn't have cable, so the only thing that I could get was SmackDown on UPN.
Right.
And like the wrestling, I immediately noticed was different. Like there weren't any real submissions going on. There weren't any high flying. The moves were sort of toned down. Everybody was doing like 2 or 3 moves, and I was almost, if it weren't for the promos, I would have been bored. But when Kurt Angle comes on, and he's doing the grappling and the ankle lock and the slams and all that kind of, like the kind of matches that he was putting on was the kind of stuff that I grew up watching on WCW TV. And for that, Kurt Angle will always be like my favorite classic from that era, the 2000s era, like WWE guy,
So for me, and I think for a lot of kids my age, Jeff Hardy was one of my favorites of all time.
Game changer.
He is a game changer. And I think, and so one of the things that, actually I didn't know this when I was a kid, so I've learned this, that they introduced the TLC match with Edge and Christian. So that's a game changer right there. You know what I mean? It changes the entirety of like what high flying is.
What's crazy about the Hardy Boys in general, Matt and Jeff, is they actually start off as backyard wrestlers.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
They had their own company.
They used to do backyard wrestling for years and years, and then they ended up getting trained, and then they ended up starting their own independent promotion called Omega. Yeah. And then that's what got them noticed and got them signed with WWE. Right. So they literally started from the bottom and clawed their way to the top.
There's a couple documentaries.
They're not like built like those classic 80s wrestlers. They're
and that was
guys, high flyers, but they also weren't built like luchadors.
No, they were small.
They're very small.
But the cool thing is like, what made it cool is like they were these like, compared to all the other wrestlers, even though Jeff Hardy was 225 pounds, and I didn't put that into perspective of how much bigger that was than me. Right?
Jeff?
Yeah, but you put him. But Jeff Hardy was made to lose. I genuinely believe that, right? Because every fucking week on SmackDown, you'd be like so excited. I know Jeff's coming out. Blah blah. Who's he facing? The Great Khali, or what's his name? Yeah, that's his name, right?
Yeah, the Great Khali.
Great Khali. And you he's not gonna win.
That's my.
They're gonna put him. Okay, they put him against Umaga one time, and that was pretty cool at the one Summer Slam.
Yeah, well,
he won that one.
Earlier, like he also had that ladder match with Undertaker.
But ladder match
too, which he didn't win, but like they told such a great story. You a couple of times you were like, damn, is he actually? They might actually have him win.
Right. And okay, so this is why I say that like the generation of watching Jeff Hardy and stuff might have been the greatest generation of wrestling, is because when you see those high flying moments, right, they're getting up on the top of the screen, fucking jumping down, flipping on Randy Orton on the bottom of the stage, right? That's fucking huge. People weren't doing that in the 80s and stuff like that. Well, obviously they could, and in different times too, structures and stuff like that. But they fucking did that. You know what I mean? They were doing those high flying moves. They were jumping off 20-foot ladders, falling into tables down on the concrete.
On some level, I think Paul Heyman would beg the difference. Say ECW did a lot of that first. But
That's true.
Sure.
Vince McMahon loved to mine those. The difference I think between like ECW and WWE is that ECW had more of the death-defying stuff going on like day in, day out of their regular operations, whereas Vince would take these extreme ideas and go, well, we'll save it for the pay-per-view.
Right.
You know, we'll have these guys do it once every month.
Every month.
show.
You know, right. Yeah. Whereas like Paul Heyman's like, so last week they were throwing cheese graters at you and you were using that in a match. What are we going to do this week? Set the tables on fire. Great.
Yeah.
Right.
Bring that's just Friday night.
Right.
You know?
But then what happens? You start running out of ideas. People have seen it before. You've thrown out everything you can, and
it was better performances in WWE compared to like.
Well, I mean,
depending on the era of ECW,
like one thing I liked about WCW looking back is that they kind of presented it more as like a sport, whereas WWE presented it more as like a TV show that happens to feature wrestling. Like you watch like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio at Halloween Havoc, and that's one of the fucking greatest wrestling matches of all time. Yeah, that's WCW.
Yep.
And then I don't know if you guys probably don't listen to wrestling podcasts, but Mick Foley tells this story on his or it was either one of his documentaries or he told it again on his podcast, where you guys obviously know the Hell in a Cell match with Undertaker, where he got fucking thrown off and tooth in his nose and thumbtack.
One of the greatest matches.
Like after that match, like Mick Foley said that like Vince came up to him in like the trainer's room while he's getting like stitched up and cleaned up and everything, and Vince told him, he's like, I just want you to know, like, I appreciate everything you did. I can't thank you enough for what you just did for me, but I don't ever want to see anything like that again.
Who said that?
Vince McMahon.
Wow.
Well, that's probably scary as fuck too.
Oh yeah.
Because like there's a 50. It's only a 50-50 chance. It's gonna go kind of all right, and you're not gonna get. You're gonna get hurt either way, but you're gonna be able to walk after, possibly just with a few stitches, or you're fucking dead. You know what I mean? Or you're paralyzed. There's only two ways that can go.
Wasn't even Foley said that, like, when he did that first fall off the cage, like, you know,
and he goes
couple inches to the left or the right, his head hits one of those monitors.
You're done. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
and you have to do it in such a fast motion too, of like, we got to keep this real, like I didn't know Undertaker was gonna throw me or whatever it may be, right? Or even if they made that decision last minute, you have to eyeball that. There's no trajectory. There's no, rope, invisible line that he's attached to that's perfectly landing him there. You're eyeballing it and going, good luck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was one thing. Wrestling back in the day is very different than now, and you can argue whether that's for the better or not.
It's for the worse. It's for the.
Because now like everybody's like more aware of like concussions and everything, and they're more like health conscious. Like
boring.
Well, I was gonna say like back in like the late '80s, early '90s, like there's a match. You guys remember Vader?
Yeah,
Big Van Vader, Frankie Stacchino's dad on Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
He had a match in Japan with this guy named Stan Hansen, and he got hit so hard his eye popped out of the socket.
Oh yeah.
And you can see the footage, like he like takes his mask off and his eye is like all popped out, and he just like shoves it back in and then keeps wrestling. Whereas nowadays, like somebody gets like, a bloody nose or a cut on their eye, and they like stop the match, and the refs put the gloves on, and they got to stop the bleeding before the match can continue.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, that
I saw that video. That's fucked up.
My dad just recently put it on. He was like, "Oh, they're still airing SmackDown," because we've heard the news of like, oh, they had their own channel for a second, their whole own network.
Yeah,
and they sold it again because like.
Well, they had their own network where they had like original content, and then their pay-per-views would go there.
Yeah, and
then Peacock offered them like $2 billion for everything, and they were like, okay.
Yeah.
So
then, we figured, he was like, oh, okay, let's just check out with SmackDown soon. I was like, you're not going to like it. It's fucking boring. It's terrible now. And so, of course, it's the worst fucking monologues I've ever heard in my life. And
the microphone work sucks now, dude.
Dude, they don't sound intimidating anymore.
No.
Everyone sounds like me and like I don't sound intimidating at all.
Here's what I say, like, you know, when we were watching wrestling in the 90s, like, the Attitude Era, you got to remember every week we had like The Undertaker sacrificing somebody. You had Steve Austin driving a monster truck over The Rock's brand new Lincoln Continental.
Right.
You had Sable fucking taking her top off and she's got handprints on her tits. Like, it was a completely different era.
Right.
And so
It was exciting.
it was like,
And there was no internet available to counter that shit either. So it's like now,
Right,
it's
so if
more
you-
technical now, where that's like, okay, they did that cool little.
Well, you were able to get away with it more.
Yeah, because that was during like the Jerry Springer era where you had
Right.
like South Park and Jerry Springer and like, you know,
Everything's just
like cancel
Raunchy.
culture wasn't a thing. It's not like it is now where everyone walks on eggshells because heaven forbid you offend somebody.
Right.
So
Mwah, mwah.
it's watered down now as well.
Well, I mean, also, let's not forget that since Vince McMahon's wife has gone into politics, running on the conservative ticket, that's around the time when they decided to tone everything down to PG because, well, quite frankly, you know, that looks unbecoming of her. It's like, well, didn't you punch your husband in the groin because he had an affair with you, Miss? I'm trying to talk about policy here, you know.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
And that's not a
I
coincidence.
have the DVD of Donald
even
Trump at
before
the
that,
wrestling pay-per-view too.
Even before that, the Chris Benoit thing changed the shit big time. That was probably a bigger blow to wrestling.
No, well, no, because
Well,
they
like-
were still raunchy after.
Well, what it was is like,
But there was more.
the first one was when Eddie Guerrero died, because when Eddie Guerrero died, that's when they introduced their wellness policy, where they were cracking down on recreational drug use and steroids and all that other stuff. Because the thing with Eddie is, you know, he had been a drug abuser, but he'd been clean for a number of years, but it still did like damage to his heart. And then like, even though he'd been clean for a number of years, his heart just gave out one day.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's when the wellness policy was implemented. With Chris Benoit, when they did everybody thought it was like roid rage at first, and if
Right.
you watch like old like news reports from that time, the news was pushing that narrative that it was roid rage.
Right.
And you'd even have wrestlers like Kevin Nash coming out like, I would know this is clearly not roid rage. I'm speaking from experience here. But when they did the autopsy on Chris Benoit, that's when we started discovering about like the damage that concussions have and CTE. And I think when they did the autopsy, the what's the autopsy person called? It's not a doctor. It's an
No.
autopsitrician or something.
No. He's a
Toxicologist?
Toxicologist.
Is it coroner? I'm just gonna say coroner.
Toxicologist.
But like they basically said his brain had so much brain damage from repeated concussions that it resembled like an 80-year-old man with Alzheimer's.
And wasn't it a wrestler actually that did a former wrestler?
Well, it was Chris Nowinski.
Yeah.
Yeah, he runs like a concussion foundation, and so then that was also a big change too. Is then like, okay, well let's tone it down. Let's not take as many risks, and you see that in football too,
Right.
Where the NFL
way more than.
Yeah, I mean, if Corday was here, he could elaborate.
Right.
But you know, and the NFL's also taking concussions more seriously because back in the day you would just walk that shit off.
And they have more concussions in football.
Have you heard the who played Hornswoggle?
Well, they thought you could just walk that shit off.
Yeah.
We're discovering
Yeah.
now the shit ain't right.
What's it called? Who plays? Who's Hornswoggle? I don't know his real name.
It's like Dylan
Yeah,
something.
He's on podcasts a lot, and he's like one of the few wrestlers that think Chris Benoit did not.
Yeah.
That he did not do it. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
We talked about it before. I think he did do it.
Chris did it, but he was brain damaged.
The thing is, dude,
Man
like
was-
people like, he was like their hero, and it's just you don't want to ever think that guy did all that shit.
Right.
Like, you don't ever want like, nah, there's no way. Like, and I think people just give themselves a little like story of what may have happened to kind of take the blame away from the dude.
I mean, he did
He
it.
loved it.
He did it.
He did it. He wrote shit on there with his writings, and it's like everything that's come out. Like, he texted people, called people.
That whole like the dogs are out of the
The
kennel.
dogs, yeah.
But dude was brain damaged. You know what I mean? Not to take away any of the horror, but that actually adds to the horror. Can you imagine not being in full control of your own thoughts?
Right.
And he didn't.
just
He didn't.
nuts.
He didn't like.
Scary.
Well, he beat the shit out of her. No. Like that's what he.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot of the details until Dark Side of the Ring did that episode.
Brutalized her.
Yeah, I didn't know that like he put his knee in her back and like broke her back.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot of those details until Dark Side of the Ring.
I'm gonna watch that.
So
You ever seen that?
No,
It's
never.
pretty dark, man.
Do they have
It
like
also talks
other-
about the Eddie Guerrero,
yeah, because Benoit took Eddie's death harder than his fucking widow.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Lost his best friend. That's
His best friend, his brother. And he seemed like a crazy guy already about to snap when he,
yeah. Yeah, in the episode they talk, and it's, you know what, it sucks because Chris Benoit was one of as far as his ring work is concerned, he's definitely one of my favorite wrestlers to watch in the ring. You know what I mean? It's like that whole group that came over, the Radicals, right? Perry Saturn, Dean,
and
Eddie.
It's crazy that Perry's still alive, and I thought that was the first guy to OD or something.
Right? Perry even went missing for a while. Like no one
He
knew
was
who
homeless.
it was.
He was homeless.
It's
He
crazy.
came back with face tattoos and head tattoos. And he was doing meth, and that's the first guy I thought is gonna be like, he's gonna OD.
And you know what happened? The reason he got phased out of the E, I heard, was because he got a little annoyed with another wrestler. I guess this is a guy he was wrestling, and I guess the guy stiffed him or something. So Perry beat the living soup out of him. And
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
then they started to like give him a stupid gimmick, the moppy thing, and then they phased him out of television, which is a shame because he was a solid talent too. But yeah, man, like, you know, those were the days. I mean, no matter what company you liked, there was something that, like Phil pointed out, which is why I like WCW so much, is because they tried to focus on it like it was a sport. Until you got to like the main event stuff with the NWO and all that, that was where the soap opera came. But even then, you know what I mean? Like NWO was kind of a team
They were beating WWE
You know.
at the time with the NWO shit.
for
83 weeks.
Yep.
83
83 weeks.
Nitro beat Raw in the ratings.
83 weeks, and WWE was treated more like a soap opera, and I didn't love the ring work the same way. It really depends on who's in the ring, to be honest with you. But WCW, I could always count to turn on and enjoy the ring work. You know.
What was your next question, bro?
Well, I honestly, that was great.
Did you guys? Well, I think we talked about it already. About like you said Wakanda Forever. We did in the previous episode.
We talked about that like off camera. I don't think we talked about that in an episode.
No, we didn't.
Because I know I talked about.
haven't even wanted, like, I don't know what it is. I haven't been interested in watching any of those Marvel movies anymore.
I haven't been interested in any superhero movies.
I think I'm tapped out on Marvel.
Me too.
Like, like after Endgame, it's just like, eh.
Yeah, last one you saw was with Spider-Man, yeah?
Yeah, which
Saw
was
them
great,
together,
but
yeah.
it was just like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what it is.
I feel like they're pumping them out so fast and so many at a time that you're just like,
it's like,
it's like Star Wars now.
we know that
like Star Wars.
lose and then the good guy wins, and if the good guy doesn't win at this movie, the next one it will happen. It's become so like predictable that we don't, like, we kind of, I don't know, me, like I kind of feel like the movie's more geared to like little gasping moments. Oh, 3 Spider-Man, and then the ending, like, yeah, okay, that's what I figured, and then like, all right, time to go home.
Yeah.
There's no new remember that thing I sent you guys from Jane Silent Bob reboot, where the Jason Lee from Mallrats talks about they're not making any new movies that they can reboot in 10 years. And it's like, that's what it feels like with movies, man. There's no new stories coming out.
Well,
that's why I'm really been interested in watching independent films.
Well, that's like you guys have seen that clip of Matt Damon on Hot Ones talking about like how the industry has changed.
Oh, you mentioned this once in another episode, but reiterate for the people who
Yeah, so basically Matt Damon explained that the reason Hollywood doesn't make movies today like they used to in the 90s, like, they were making movies like Good Will Hunting and Dead Poets Society, movies like that don't get made anymore, and that's because
streaming.
Yeah, well, long story short, it's because of streaming. Because back in the day, you didn't have to make all your money at the box office because you still had like the home video release coming, whether that was VHS or DVD, and so you had a whole nother revenue stream coming,
stuff like that.
You know, and then after that it hits pay-per-view, and then after that it hits cable, and then it hits basic cable, and then it hits broadcast, and every time it does that, that's another revenue stream, and that's also another round of advertising to promote your movie.
Mm-hmm.
But now you don't have that. You have streaming, which artists don't make anything off of. I'm sure you, as a musical artist, you can attest to that. And so he used that example of Under the Candelabra, which was going to be like a $50 million film, like a low budget $50 million film. But whatever you make at the box office, you have to split with the exhibitors, with the theater owners. So you have to make $100 million at the box office just to break even before you start making a profit. And with a film like that, like there's no way you're going to make $100 million at the fucking box office with a film like that.
Right.
And there's no revenue stream after that because you're not going to make that back on streaming either. So the only movies Hollywood can make and turn a profit are these big budget blockbusters. They're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars when they come out.
Right. So what's the excuse for like all the cheat, like, actually what kind of confuses me is the amount of Netflix shows and movies that are out that aren't even like, I'm not even talking about like the big like Wednesdays or the game or like, you know, like the U's or whatever, right? I'm talking about like the cheesy ones that come out 5 at a time every year. You know what I mean? That kind of have the same plot every year.
Well, so here's
how are they getting that much money?
Well, well, you got to look, how many subscribers does Netflix have? It's like around 100 million or so, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
You're paying $10 a month, more or less. That's $1 billion a month in revenue. The films they're making are more of like an incentive to keep those subscribers, to keep that money pumping. So they can dump, 50 million, 100 million into this lower budget action movie or these lower budget rom-coms. Who cares about the quality? The more movies they pump out, the more incentive there is for
223 million.
What's that?
223 million as of 2022.
Yeah, and then you times that by $10 a month, and that's their monthly revenue.
Also, what I've noticed is now more than ever, there's literally something made for everyone. Like if your thing is fantasy, if your thing is adult, dark, twisted fantasy, it's Game of Thrones and House of Dragons, right? The political sophistication of all that. But if your thing is like something a little bit more lighthearted, for example, you know what I mean? You might be hearkening back to I'm trying to come up with, but you get the idea. Mm-hmm. If you're into like dystopian science fiction, there's a show for that. If you're into spacefaring science fiction, there's a new show for that. If you're more into kind of the Matrix or something, we have a Matrix clone. If you're into a specific sort of comedy, if it's a comedy about a loner, here's one for that. If it's a comedy about romance, here's one for that. Are you like the nerdy weirdo that like can't fit in? We have a sitcom just for you. It's one of those. It's one of those things where there's like, you want something that's starring an Indian American. Here's a sitcom. It's a show for you. You want something that resembles some Irish folks who are growing up post NRA area. Here's a show for you, and it's set in high school too. Isn't that lovely? It's literally a show now for everyone. And the problem is, no one is ever going to agree on all these shows being good because they're so niche. They're too niche to be universally accepted.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's a lot of those kind of like shows and stuff like that.
I kind of like that though.
I like them. I like them a lot. I'm one to binge watch a stupid cheesy show all in one night just because I'm like bored. I'm like, I haven't seen this one yet. It's the exact same fucking plot as the last one. It's the exact same character. I mean,
predictable stories.
Predictable story. Like, I mean, and then as soon as you binge it, you're like, I kind of want to see what happens in season 2. Oh, well, this came out in 2015, and there's not going to be a season 2. All right, let me just watch the next one that's exactly like...
The last show that really, like...
But it does keep me coming back. Like, I will continue to watch those. Don't get me wrong. Like, I am one of those people that like cheesy shit. Like,
I am picky in what I do stream.
So I get that.
The last show that really grabbed my attention and like took me for a ride was Breaking Bad, and I don't think I've ever had that experience in anything. Even movies that I've watched that like really took.
Kind of going back to what we were saying about the model changing. One thing that's different is because we had all those different streams. So it's like movie would come out in theaters, and then you'd have the home video release, and then pay-per-view, and then cable, and then basic cable, and then broadcast TV. So you're constantly like having this film like advertised to you for years. Like it would take 5 years before it finally hits basic broadcast TV.
Right.
Yeah.
With modern movies, because that's not happening, they don't have the same staying power. They don't have the same lasting power. So you forget them as soon as you watch them. Whereas back in the day, it's like everybody saw fucking Lethal Weapon 3 because you had 5 years to watch it and it was on every platform imaginable.
Me and my homies would quote shit from Clerks.
Yeah.
And you don't see that with people now, like where they watch a movie and it sticks with them because the line was so relatable or funny.
Yeah. Well, and also there's so much stuff coming out now.
Comes out at
Louis
one
C.K.
time.
pointed out a great thing that he was, I mean, that's not the, I know a lot of people hate him right now, but he pointed out something that he notices that's changed in TV and in movies is they're not getting writers. That's why I was happy to have Johan on the show. A lot of the shows are getting writers who are like coming straight out of college into writing rooms that haven't necessarily,
Written.
Yeah, and they're writing lines that don't sound like people really talk.
Well, here's the thing, like we were talking about.
So there's a disconnect. That's what I mean.
There's so much stuff coming out that like it spreads the industry thin. Like all these streamers have their original content to keep subscribers coming back, and there's still regular TV shows still out there.
Yeah,
like it's impossible to watch everything. Right. Like back in the day, like everybody kind of watched the same shows, right? But that doesn't happen anymore because there's too much stuff out there.
That's why it was like legendary.
Yeah.
Disney.
But when you
were kids,
but when you have 12 different streaming services that each have 20 original shows, all those shows need a team of writers. Like where are all those writers going to come from? So that's why they're pulling them, straight out of college, because where else are they? There's only so many writing jobs available, and there's only so many writers available to fill those jobs.
And there's a million projects going on at one time, whether they're getting picked up or not. But like you said, everything's full already.
But like the industry has changed so much, and I mean it's the same thing for music too. I know we talked about that before.
That's why I truly believe it's gonna be so hard, and I can't tell you like what's what now. Like I can't see it, but I think the idea of like a forever song, right? Like we got the Marvin Gayes of the world, we got maybe the old Adele's, Lord, stuff like that back then, even 2013, 14. Like there's songs that are gonna live with us for a long time, but those artists are coming out with songs now. Dude, it's just like Netflix. We see them once. They might be a real, big meme for a while. They might stay out for a month or maybe even a year, but then we're gonna forget about them. There's so many songs that I'll like look back on Spotify and I'll be like, fuck, I remember this song. I don't even remember the words anymore.
Well, we talked back in the day, like you made your money off album sales. Like if you like this song, you got to buy the whole album to hear it.
$20,
and that's why music videos were so big, because they were a commercial for the album.
Music videos are non-existent anymore.
Yeah, because now
they're obsolete if you're an independent artist.
Yeah, people don't buy albums, they don't buy CDs, they just stream the songs they like, and artists get pennies per play, if that, which is why record labels now have like these 360 deals, because they're not going to make money off your album sales, so they got to take money from your merch and money from your touring and money from every single thing.
You want to know something that's actually really funny?
Deals were in the works before streaming got.
Yeah, they were
360 deals have been
in there for a while.
Now, like a lot of bands, I've heard like this.
Lady Gaga signed a 360 deal.
This is what they've heard. Like
I think, yeah.
You gotta really have a good.
Every band that we know that's huge right now, they probably have all signed a 360.
Oh, yeah.
They're probably out of it now, but
You gotta really focus on your live shit, because everybody's cranking out good music on streaming shit.
yeah.
So
You want to know something? You know how the whole narrative of live is where you make your money now? That's wrong. Unless you're a really big artist like Taylor Swift or something, live's not where you're making your money. You're losing money on touring right now. You know what I just found out? Where usually back then would maybe cost $10,000 a week to rent a tour bus, right? Broken down with everything. It's about double now. It's about $20,000 a month or something, or a week or something like that, right? And you think about like,
But if you're selling,
venues are not only, so let's say you're signed to a label, right? You're making maybe $300 as a headliner, $400 as a headliner, or $1,200. Let's say you're packing out nice rooms, $1,200, and then you sell $1,000 worth of merch a night, but you got to split part of that merch money with your label, with the venue.
Yeah.
You got it. You know what I mean? By the time you're getting gas, food, and everything else, you're probably in the hole about, a couple $1,000. And that's just to hopefully gain your fan base to keep selling records. You make shit on streaming, but let's say you get you're making 1 million streams on Spotify a month, right? You're probably not just, if you're doing that, monthly listeners, you're not just doing 1 million on one song, you're doing 1 million on a few songs. That's about $4,000 a month per million streams, right? If you're up there in the 100 millions, I mean, that's where you're making your money. You know what I mean? And let's say you have that many listens. People are also listening on Apple Music, which pays more than Spotify, which pays more on Tidal, which pays more on
but how many artists are going to reach that point though?
That's true.
Well, that's the great thing about TikTok and stuff, right? We have that opportunity as independent artists, but let's say like 90% of artists will be like, if a label deal does come in, right? We're like, dude, this is the one chance we have with a major or something to push our shit out, and we either take this chance or we deny it and we say we can do this on our own, and maybe that was our only hit online. You know what I mean? We didn't have the push. We don't know how to market. We just got lucky with that one.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've also seen some Spotify pages where their artists have had like a little donate link, like donate if you like my stuff.
Yeah, that'd be more to charities though. I've never seen one that's directly just linked to the band, unless it was like a GoFundMe if their shit got stolen. Which I've seen a couple of those, but I've never seen one just to be like
not
hey,
Patreon,
just a Patreon.
What's crazy is just like the fact that the industry itself has changed so much with movies, music, just entertainment in general. It seems like it's harder now to make money as an entertainer than it's ever been. Like because those avenues that used to be available aren't there anymore.
and I think that's not just entertainers. That's all around, man. The pay in like regular, not even entertainment, just the pay in fucking
everyday job,
trade jobs. It's like, yeah, it's better than most jobs, but developers aren't trying to spend that much on labor now.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I talked with Marcos.
Outside of, they're finding loopholes where they could do stuff. Union work pays really good.
Well, that's what I was talking with Marcos is, back in like the early 90s, like a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs was like 80 grand. Mm-hmm. Now it's like 800,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back then minimum wage was like 425. Now it's 15. So the cost of living has increased,
what a lot of
tenfold. Wages have barely tripled.
You know what a lot of trades workers do here in the Bay Area, like specifically San Francisco, Oakland, that work in the trades, that jobs pay sometimes, 70 to 80 an hour for some like journeyman, which takes a long time to get to. But the majority of them are coming from Stockton, Tracy to work Monday through Friday in the Bay Area.
Oh, they'll stay in like
No, they'll drive back the same day.
I know somebody that will stay.
There's some that do stay
Family for a week during the week and then come back. And
well, that's like, we've talked about this before. Like, the average rent for like a 1-bedroom apartment out here is like $2,000.
Well,
right?
The point I was making with this is like these same people that are doing all this shit to survive are the ones that are like fucking like, I'll just listen to Spotify because shit's so expensive. Like it's hard to get those guys to come out. I'm thankful that these people come to a show and spend money and drop money because it's like, dude,
People need a good time.
Yeah, for sure. But like, the more it gets, the more it gets, the less people are going to be able to afford to go to these things. Pay for a whole album. Pay for your streaming.
Well, you know what though? They were actually talking about because like writers are starting to fight for like especially in music, like we need to get paid more, blah, blah. And artists are like, dude, Spotify, you gotta throw us down more than a quarter of a penny per stream, right? Like, that's not fucking fair. And they're like, well, we can't pay you guys a penny per stream unless we're charging, you know, like $100 per thing.
That's bullshit.
And so now they're thinking though, right? And now here's the thing, right? Say it goes up $20-$30 a month, right? So I saw something in the comments on TikTok today and was like, dude, if Spotify or Apple Music went up, if everything went up, people would pay for it. You're fucked. You don't have a choice if you want to listen to music, right?
Yeah, we can't go backwards.
You can't go backwards.
You know,
they're not selling CDs like that anymore. It's too expensive, and there's nothing really to play your CDs on unless you're no. But let's just be honest. If you're out and you're driving, 90% of us drive to work, right? I mean, you're gonna be listening to Spotify or something on the way to your in your car.
Unless you got a whole set.
And let's just think about it. Like, I have a CD player in my car, but how many times I hit a pothole and all my shit scratches? You know what I mean? Like, it's convenient to have these kind of things in our life, and we're so used to it. So yeah, artists might make a little more money, but like, things I think are going to start going up.
Yeah, well, that's like,
and people are fucked.
Going back to what JD was saying, like, you look at like the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in our neck of the woods. It's like $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. It all depends. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less.
Yeah, depends.
But we're gonna make the math easy. $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. You have to make 3 times rent to qualify. Yeah. So you need to be bringing home $6,000 a month after taxes to qualify for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Who does that?
That's $72,000 a year after taxes. That's closer to $90,000 a year before taxes, which would be like $45 an hour. Minimum wage is $15. So cost of living and inflation for the consumer, $10 a month for Netflix, and then when there's nothing I want to watch, I'll cancel it and sign up for Peacock or HBO Max, and I'll just change my subscription every month. Like, yeah, that's great for the consumer, but as an artist and a creator, like, all those revenue streams are gone. And because they say a recession's coming. I think it's already been here and been here for a while. People just don't want to admit it.
Right.
Because we don't have the disposable income we used to. Like, me and JD talked about when, we did our film Unhealthy Comedian, streaming now on Roku. Like, when we were looking at our ways to...
Which film?
Unhealthy Comedian, streaming now on Roku. But when we were talking about releasing it, like, we couldn't afford to do a proper theatrical run because we're like, there's no way we're going to sell enough tickets at a reasonable price to make our money back, let alone turn a profit. Right. So we did the one screening we did. And then, we're not going to make any money on streaming. We thought we'd looked into like maybe doing like a small run of Blu-rays, but then we're like, well, who's going to pay for the Blu-ray when it's available on streaming right now? And then that's
who has a Blu-ray.
Yeah. And it's like, and then we're going to have to pay for that cost up front. And then we have a stack of Blu-rays sitting until we can sell them. So it's just all those revenue streams that were available to filmmakers and musicians and artists in like the 90s aren't there anymore. And so it's harder than ever to turn a profit, and it's only going to get harder.
You know what I try to say?
This is how you get our own streamer.
You're not.
More streamers is the answer. Yeah. I think that's making the problem worse.
That's making the problem worse. Because you know what's funny too? Because we had, when we, on our DSPs, when we released.
Punk rock was back in the days. You had to go to them to get the album at the shows and nowhere else.
Well, I was wondering too if artists are going to start doing that again. Remember in the beginning?
I've been reading about Henry Rollins. I keep talking.
In the beginning, Taylor Swift and certain artists didn't have their shit on Spotify until they got what they wanted out of Spotify.
I know you're not gonna. That's what Kanye did with one of his recent albums. You get it at his website.
No, and I. In that no, but like in that situation, like I agree. You know what I mean? With that,
Andrew Schultz, look what he did.
Yeah. He bought it back from Netflix and
put it on his web page, and I guess once he made enough money, then he just put it on YouTube, which is a slap in the face for everyone that paid. But hey, whatever, he made money.
Yeah.
I have seen artists kind of go that independent route. Like, I've seen a lot of comedians where like like Christopher Titus, where he'll take his specials and he'll put them out on his website, and you have to buy them directly through him. You can either buy the digital copy or you can buy the Blu-ray, but it's all directly through him. That way, there's no middleman, there's no studio that he has to do. He pays for the production himself, he produces everything himself, and then if you want it, you have to come directly through him. That only works because he already has a fan base built in. If you don't have a pre-existing fan base, that doesn't work. Right.
I mean, and when you're all starting out, like I go to shows all the time. These bands had all their, CDs. I still have CDs from these fucking bands that I went to go see, and it's like, that's cool, but like you're not really selling CDs anymore. No, like, no one's selling CDs, and if you do listen, I mean, a friend of mine, I don't want to say his name, but he just, he did. He posted about it. Flacco, he told me that he paid his rent for the first time off of streams.
Yeah, he actually announced that.
He announced that. Yeah, and but that's got to be rare. And I'm sure you could be making way more money just if Spotify wanted to. Because is there still such a thing like Napster right now?
Mm-hmm. Napster still exists.
Yeah,
our music's on there,
but it's not like it was.
They're all streaming sites now. They're all similar.
It's legal now.
So the amount of
no longer punk.
The amount of streaming sites. We just got an email from our DSP that we upload our music on. They announced us 2 more new streaming stores that our song got added to, and it was like, yo, who's going on these streaming sites? Because I've never. I mean, I know. Yeah. I can't get it wrong. I don't have a big enough fan base to see numbers from any of those, but it is after you get from, past Amazon Music, Tidal and stuff, you're like, okay, who the fuck's on Napster right now?
Yeah.
Who's using Napster for
12 people.
Well, it's
still alive.
Well, like we've been saying, it's an oversaturation of the market. Like, just look at how many platforms we're on, because we're on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
everywhere.
Places you see revenue from.
That's the thing, is it's all spread so thin. If it was like, you remember when it was just Netflix?
Yeah.
And it was just Netflix.
Well, Hulu, I remember was the website first. And I could go in there and watch a million things for free. And then if there was some real things that I maybe wanted to I had to pay for you could sign up. I had a free Hulu account, and that was it. But I could watch a million things. I used to watch the Do Tour, X Games and stuff like that. I could watch tattoo show. There was a million tattoo documentaries and shows.
And when it was just Netflix, it was a no-brainer. But now that there's Netflix, Peacock, HBO Max, Disney Plus,
Discovery Plus,
all these, nobody can subscribe to all of them. So you have.
And they do it on purpose, where it's just like when you were on TV. Oh, I knew I could tune in at 8:00 to see this one show on Discovery, and then on Thursday, we knew that they were releasing something on whatever other channel, or the big game was on Thursday night.
Channel 7.
But it was all in the same place. Now it's I can't see, people are going to be like, oh, did you see, Game of Thrones on HBO Plus, and I'm like, no, because I don't have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People, did you see that new
HBO Max? Sorry.
People like, did you see that show on Apple TV? It's like, no, I don't have Apple TV. I'm not going to have Apple TV.
You know what it is? Entertainment's dead.
You think it's dead?
It's dead.
In a sense. I mean, on some level, it's more.
It's dying. They're begging us to watch this shit, man. That's what it comes down to.
Here's the thing.
Well, what's the thing?
Can we go back? Can we go backwards?
No, we can't.
Why not?
Trickle-down economics, and the Democrats will never get rid of it.
I just think it's too far gone, man. It's like
what?
It's like there's.
Or do we plateau for the next 20 years just like this?
I don't think. I think people are gonna get it's either I watch the new season of Stranger Things or I buy groceries. What the fuck? Fuck these shows. If that's the case, that's what it's gonna be in a few years.
I would say that not having cable but having a streamer, picking one streamer to watch is probably better. It's cheaper than cable. It's cheaper than
Well, what's going to happen is you're going to see a rise in piracy.
which is I'm all for that.
Because that's what killed the music industry is free music. And it's like, well, you can't make people go backwards. You can't get them to pay for something they've been getting for free. And it's like when you're asking people to subscribe to 11 different streaming services at $10 a month, people can't do that. So they're just going to pirate the shows they want to watch, but aren't going to pay $11 for your streamer for.
Right. Now, some people still, even after Napster did buy albums, because album sales were continued to be published, but you got to really like that artist and want to see them keep going. Like, hey, the guy just came out, it's his new project, it's his first project or her project, I'm going to go ahead and buy this to, you know, encourage it to continue. But somebody like super established, maybe like as a pirate, you may go, Jay-Z's 12 albums in, I'll just pirate this one, he doesn't need my money, you know, you know, or whatever. Or like, you know, I don't know, Queen it's their best of, I'll just pirate this because there's several albums in, whatever's.
I mean,
but
the music industry's dead.
Entertainment's dead, man. Like, it's not that it's dead, you know, like people are still going to go to look like small shows. And I think that's the best way to support the entertainment industry.
I think by going backwards, that's what it's going to become. It's going to be the new
exclusive entertainment.
Exclusive entertainment. It's going to be come to support your local artist. When they start getting bigger and bigger, it's going to be cool to see them for the first 10 years and then support your new local artist. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that's
it's going to be very local and very niche.
The same thing with independent filming. You know, it's going to be the new thing because you can't afford it. And you know, independent artists are already taking. We're known. Or sorry, our mindset's already we're taking a loss anyways.
Yeah.
Can we build a fan base while taking a loss though? Is it worth it?
Yeah. And if there's too much shit out there too, where it's like, you know, how do you make an impact now?
It's hard,
you know, and you know,
like I said, like we said, there's no. I don't think there's a lifetime. Like, there's not going to be movies and songs out there that are like, we're going to listen to this or watch this every year for the next 20 years.
Not in a bad way.
I mean, there are definitely. I think
not in a bad way.
There are definitely.
Homes are gonna get a lot more.
I think, yeah, dude.
There are definitely some classics that will continue to be talked about, though. That you know, maybe nothing too new, no. But
like perfect. Okay, perfect example of something that, like, you know, when I think entertainment's dead. These comics that I don't know them well, but Johan worked with them. Mm-hmm. They used to do this show on they got pitched to TBS and TBS picked it up. It's called The Dress Up Gang. TBS picked it up. It was really well thought out scenarios and it's actually funny and it's smart. TBS picked it up, then they just dropped them and now they just put it all on YouTube and I'm watching them like, damn, if these guys didn't fucking make it. It's like, you know,
like we're all fucked.
Entertainment's dead, man.
I mean, but you never know.
When you got these stupid ass shows now, and like it just, you know, I don't know.
Well, that's why. Like I saw an interview with Mr. Beast, and he was like, "We do this on YouTube. That's where you're gonna start making your money. New TV is gonna start going to YouTube.
YouTube it's where everyone can go watch it.
Watch it for free.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a bunch of ads. It's all good." You know what I mean?
That's commercial.
That's commercial.
It's commercial. Your parents remember.
It's the new algorithm. It's the new
But it's where you can make $1 million a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can make your show, and you can do what you want to do because you produced it. You made the money. Exactly. You know,
old school TV shows.
Yeah, you can make old school TV shows. I think that's what's gonna start happening too. People are gonna start making real shows again for YouTube.
You know what else is dead? This episode. That's been The Voice Party.
And we're out. Okay.
It started dying a little.